با درود به تمام دوستان و عزیزان، من نیاز کسروی هستم، مجری برنامه امشب شما. خیلی خوش آمدید. برای اینکه همه دوستان متوجه تمام حرفای من بشن، اگه اجازه بدید بقیه صحبتام رو به انگلیسی میگم. Good evening, my name is Niyaz Kasravi and I'm honored to be your Master of Ceremonies for tonight's program. On behalf of myself and everyone at the California Zoroastrian Center, I'd like to welcome you to this program to honor one of our most celebrated and well-recognized and respected leaders and ancestors, King Cyrus or Cyrus the Great. In so many ways, Cyrus was an exceptional leader for his time. He had foresight, compassion, and a deep respect for equality and human dignity. As most of us know, the world recognizes him as one of its first human rights leaders. Indeed, he issued the first ever Declaration of Human Rights, known as the Cyrus Cylinder, or Manshur Kurosh. You can see a picture of it right here on this podium. It is a clay cylinder that's 2,006 years old, and it's the first Bill of Human Rights known to man. And it's the first model state based on diversity and acceptance and freedom. So, we are all very proud to have him as an ancestor and learn from him, who could really see what the world needed way before we even knew it. We have a great program planned for you this evening. You will have a chance to not only enjoy music and dance, but to witness the unveiling of a statue of King Cyrus and learn more about how he inspired and indeed continues to inspire the world today. A couple of announcements before we start the program. This program is being streamed live on Instagram, so we're really going to need you to remain quiet because the camera and the microphone attached to it are up there and they pick up all the noise, and we want everybody who's tuning in on Instagram to be able to understand and enjoy the program. So خواهش میکنم سکوت را رعایت کنید. We have a professional photographer here with us tonight. I know a lot of us like to take photos. If you can be cognizant of not getting in his way and coming up to the stage to take photos, that would be much appreciated. So, on to the program. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to one of the members of the Board of Directors here at the California Zoroastrian Center, Mr. Ashkan Zahabi.
Good evening. On behalf of California Zoroastrian Center and the Board of Directors, we would like to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are pleased to be able to get together again after the unprecedented pandemic and celebrate commemoration of Cyrus the Great. We appreciate Mr. Zarin-afsar for creating this masterpiece worthy of Cyrus the Great and are happy to unveil it this evening at our center. We would like to welcome present Honorable Mayor of Laguna Niguel, Mr. Fred Minayan, Honorable Mayor of Westminster, Mr. Trita, Honorable Mayor of Irvine, Mrs. Farah Khan, as well as Professor Roshan Hubbard and Afshin Zan. We thank all people who helped us to make this event happen. Enjoy the ceremony. درود از سوی مرکز زرتشتیان کالیفرنیا و گروه مدیران از همه و تک تک شما عزیزان قدردانی می‌کنیم که با گردهمایی خود باعث سرور و گرمی این جشن شدید. خوشحالیم که توانستیم دوباره پس از این دوره بیماری همگیر گرد هم آمده و یادبود کوروش بزرگ را جشن بگیریم. از آقای زرین-افسر سپاسگزاری می‌کنیم که تندیس زیبا و هنرمندانه کوروش بزرگ را طراحی و ساختند و باعث افتخار است که در این شب همراه با شما از آن رونمایی می‌کنیم. در اینجا با آقای فرد میناگر شهردار لگونا نیگر، خانم فرح خان شهردار ایرواین، آقای تریتا شهردار وستمینستر و پروفسور افشین زن و روشن هاورد خوش آمد گفته و سپاسگزاریم که با حضور خود ما را سرافراز نمودند. از همگی کسانی که در این راه با ما همگام بوده و در برگزاری این جشن ما را یاری نمودند سپاسگزارم. از این برنامه لذت ببرید. آقای بیناگر
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Durud bar shoma. It is truly an honor, immense pleasure, and a great privilege for me as the only Persian American mayor in America for the year 2024 to be here with you all to do only one thing, to celebrate Cyrus the Great Day, his accomplishments, his first human rights charter, and also to unveil his beautiful bronze sculpture tonight. I'm very proud to announce that as the mayor of the city of Laguna Niguel on October 29th, along with the entire city council of my home city, with a population of 66,400 people, to announce October 29th as the Cyrus the Great Day in my home city. And also to encourage all the residents in my beautiful city in South Orange County to celebrate his accomplishments and share his values with everyone else. I declared October 29th as the Cyrus Day with this beautiful proclamation that I'm presenting to your center tonight on behalf of 66,400 people in the city of Laguna Niguel. This beautiful proclamation celebrating Cyrus the Great Day reads, whereas Cyrus the Great founded the Achaemenid Persian Empire and was the first visionary ruler to govern through secularism, which granted religious freedom to all people in his vast empire, stretching over 3 continents, and whereas Cyrus the Great is credited for the first declaration of human rights in the history of mankind, providing unity and equality to people from diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, and religions, and whereas Cyrus the Great developed the first known model of centralized bureaucratic government, a robust infrastructure system, the development of roads and postal system, and the use of an official language across all territories, and whereas in 539 BC, following his conquest of Babylon, Cyrus the Great freed the slaves and declared that all people have the right to choose their religion and establish racial equality. And whereas these decrees were recorded on Cyrus cylinder, now considered the world's first charter of human rights, and is widely accredited as the basis of the Magna Carta, the U.S. Constitution, yes indeed, and the U.S. Bill of Rights. And whereas Cyrus the Great, with his cylinder, has now been translated into all the 6 official languages of the United Nations in New York City, and the cylinder's provisions parallel the first 4 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Fred Vinegar, on behalf of the City of Laguna Niguel City Council, do hereby declare October 29th, Cyrus the Great Day, and encourage all residents to celebrate Cyrus the Great's contributions to human rights. With that, I read the whole proclamation. I just want to say a few things, maybe in Persian. خیلی من باعث افتخار من هست که شما من دعوت کردید بیام در پیش شما باشم. امشب شب خیلی استثنائیه. We come a long way to get to this point. به خاطر اینکه دیکلر کردن یه روزی در امریکا که is not President George Washington or President Abraham Lincoln or any of those individuals is very difficult politically speaking.
یادتون میندازیم.
افتخار ماست که اینجا باشیم و سلبریت بکنیم کارهایی که کوروش کبیر انجام داده در دنیا. خیلی لذت میبرم، خیلی خوشحالم که با همه شما هستم. کاش میتونستم بقیش به این ولی خیلی خوشحالم اینجا هستم.
Hello, my name is Trithar, Mayor of the City of Westminster. I would like to extend my congratulations to the unveiling of the bronze sculpture of Cyrus the Great. I also learned that Cyrus the Great had a great influence on our American presidents, including President Thomas Jefferson, on the idea of human rights and individual freedom. When President Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, he proposed a philosophy of human rights by stating clearly that all men are created equal. With that foundation, we honor to have the President of Cyrus the Great here in Westminster to remind all of us about the values of human rights and freedom. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mayor Farah Khan from the city of Irvine, and I apologize for not joining you in person today. I send my heartiest congratulations on the unveiling of the bronze sculpture of Cyrus the Great by Bahram Zarin-afsar, and wish you the best as you celebrate Cyrus the Great Day at the California Zoroastrian Center. Thank you and take care, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Mayor Minagar, Mayor Ta, Mayor Khan. It is fantastic to see our elected officials supporting the Zoroastrian community and helping honor the legacy of Cyrus the Great. One more reminder before the next program, please put your cell phones on silence. It's nerve-wracking enough for the performers to be up here, but when the cell phone goes off, it's very distracting for them. So take a moment and silence your cell phones. I now welcome to the stage the following individuals for a performance of traditional Persian music. Nushin Isadvostar on vocals, and thank you, Nushin John, who came all the way from San Jose just for this program. Thank you, Nushin. Rostam Kumarsi on the tar. Bahmanyan Rostamzadeh on the sitar, Ashkan Parsinejad on santur, Abtin Dadnam on the trombak, and Bijan Bakhtiari on the violin.
الا کوروش ای فخر ایران زمین، ز تو زاده شد نام ایران زمین. توی مایه لطف یزدان پاک، به ایران که دارد وجودت به خاک. ز تو هر ستمکار ویرانه شد، ز نامت به عالم شگفتانه شد. ز فر وجود تو ای مرد پاک، درفش ستم بر جهان چاک چاک. مرا بیش از این تاب وصف تو نیست، ز نام تو خوشتر بگو نام کیست. چو قلب وجودت به عالم تپید، همه تیرگی‌ها ز عالم رمید. همه عشق عالم به ایران تویی، همه فخر ایران به عالم تویی. که چون تو نبودی سرایم نبود، به عالم کجا نام ایران وجود.
Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so we're approaching one of the main highlights of our program. And before we get there, I've been tasked with reading a couple of short letters which will explain to you how we even got here to this evening. The first letter is dated October 11th, 2010, from the California Zoroastrian Center to Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar. It reads, Dear Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar, Afzar, that's true. Apologies. Dear Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar, with great appreciation and thanks, please be advised that the Board of Trustees and the Board of Directors of the California Zoroastrian Center have approved the design proposal of the statue of Cyrus the Great presented by you on September 19, 2010. The California Zoroastrian Center is willing to support your project within its means and limitations. Sincerely, California Zoroastrian Center, Mr. Homai, rest his soul. Great man indeed. The next letter is much more recent. It's dated November 10th, 2021. Dear Orange County Board of Directors of California Zoroastrian Center, the 4th Board of Trustees of California Zoroastrian Center is very pleased and honored that Cyrus the Great sculpture created, designed, and built by Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar be presented for the first time in the California Zoroastrian Center, or CZC for short, for Cyrus the Great Celebration Day occurring on Saturday, November 13th, 2021. Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar, his design was finally granted the approval between 2 finalists selected by the 4th Board of Trustees and 16th Board of Trustees in the year 2010. After a long process to review, hear different applicants and presentations. The attached letter of approval was granted to Mr. Zarin-afsar in October 2010 to fully support his Cyrus the Great sculpture with all means and limitations. The reason for approval was mainly based on the fact that his design was approved by Professor David Stronach, who we'll hear from later, the archaeologist and professor emeritus of University of California, Berkeley, scholar Dr. Ali Akbar Jafari, and other well-known experts. The fourth Board of Trustees members started fundraising by raising donations among themselves. All the funds for completion of the sculpture were provided by the donors, and no funds were provided from California Zoroastrian Center directly. It is also necessary to mention that Mr. Zarin-afsar was never compensated for his great work at any time. Thank you. We sincerely appreciate Mr. Zarin-afsar for his outstanding performance and wish him the best. The fourth Board of Trustees of the California Zoroastrian Center, Shahyar Afshari, Fereydun Goshtaspi, Bahram Kasravi, Farhad Khosravi, the late Mehraban Homai, Sohrab Salamati Pur, and Sima Shri-Far. So, it's a bit of history for you about how we got here. So now I want to introduce Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar, the man responsible for designing and building the statue of Cyrus the Great that you're about to see. Mr. Zarin-afsar holds a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, a Bachelor of Architecture, and Masters of Architecture from the University of Southern California, and a Master of Science in Structural Engineering from Cal State Northridge. He is a licensed architect in the states of California and Nevada, and is certified as a licensed architect by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. In addition, Mr. Zarin-afsar is a registered professional engineer in the states of California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. He has also taught at the University of Southern California, Cal Poly Pomona, and Irvine Institute of Technology. He's worked on many engineering projects in the last 37 years, including the seismic design of the new LAX midfield satellite concourse in the international terminal. So I'd like to invite Mr. Zarin-afsar to the stage to begin the ceremony.
Here, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I think I have a short talk, hopefully it won't bore you, and some slideshow that we could start showing the process of the creation of the statue. The microphone is here. I found it. Okay, I guess that's the next slide, please. We're all familiar with this structure. This shows sort of the geometry behind the design. I just put that slide there. This is the letter that was given to me in 2010 by the Board of Trustees. In the beginning, I consulted, when I started this project, I consulted several experts, such as Professor David Stronach, Dr. Abbas Ali-Zadeh, Dr. Jafari, and Professor Roshan, and late Farjan Fadi. This is the book that was published in 1978 by Professor David Stronach on postmodern. I have a copy of it here. If you wish to look at. He was basically the ultimate expert on this subject. Next, please. I think later on he'll be speaking, so we'll just pass these slides. Oh. Karen Stronach is going to read the letter prepared by Professor David Stronach in support of the project. Next, please. We'll be hearing from Dr. Abbas Ali-Zadeh, Research Associate Professor at the University of Chicago. Next. we will not be hearing from Dr. Jafari, but I'll be speaking about him. Professor Roshan is, I'm honored that she's here and she's speaking. Thanks. The song, this is the song that was prepared, written by Kuroshan Jahed. I'm not sure if he's attending. Next. I don't want to bore you. These individuals really helped this project go along. Darish Irani and Jefferson Irani. This is the, I guess we're showing Iran and the area of influence. Next. Next, please. Next, please. خداوند این کشور را از دشمن از خوشتابی از دروغ محفوظ دارد. Next. These are we did have a unveiling in 2016 of the draft model of the project, and at that event, I was showing you some of these are the references that I used for the project. Next, please. I guess we are familiar with this. Next, please. Next. This is what most people talk about. It's in 3 languages and Katibas. و میگه من کوروش هستم، کوروش شاه هخامنشی. Next. This is Pasargod, and this is basically a photo of relief that most people think this is Cyrus, and according to Professor Strano, it is not. Next, please. Also, some additional photos of the same site, Pasargod. This was the photo in the middle is basically what used to be there. The top portion of the writing has been destroyed. That it says the same thing, and it's all over the Pasargod, and it's called Guardian Spirit, not Cyrus. You can see these parts of the structure. The same writing is written for the top. Same here, but there's no winged spirit here. Next, please. Blow up of what's written there. Next. Again, the same. Same. Next. This was part of another lecture, but I think we don't have time for this. Next, please. This is a photograph of the crown that's above the head of the spirit. And it's an Egyptian crown, and lately some designers removed that and created a helmet that's sort of imaginary, and it's not what was there. Next. You can't hear me? No. Oh, really? These are some of the coins that I used to try to look at the features. This is Cyrus' grandfather. Next, please. Next. Darius Hashayar, refugee, one of you. Next, please. The basis of the statue was this statue of Darius Dariush that was created in Egypt, and it was later on brought to Shusha. And I used some of the motifs that are in this sculpture. And if you notice, his left foot is forward, and there's a reason for that. If you ever do Varzish Bastani, if someone does that, when they enter the growth or the room, they use the left foot. And the reason for that is the heart, they move, the actions are based on the left foot that's closest to the heart. So we have used the same motif here. Next, please. These are some of the proportioning in the original draft that I did a few years ago. Next. These are some of the motifs we don't have to go through. Next, please. Next. This is studying some of the basically clothing. Next. I found documents that I based the statue on. This is the clothing of the statue. This sort of based on these documents. Next, please. Now, this document that was discovered in Persepolis in 2007. Next, please. The stand of the statue is similar to what we see here. And basically, I've tried to use as much historic document to create the statue as possible. Next. The journey making of the sculpture. Well, this was way back. I had, I think, more dark hair then, 10 years ago. First, some of the draft clay models. Next. Next. And then from that, this was the first draft, and we had designed I designed a form in front of the statue with the Cyrus cylinder. We have not built that yet. Next, please. This is Mr. Orbani helping me in the beginning. I hope you see it. Next, please. Professor Stano measuring the statue and making sure I haven't missed the inch here. Well, there. Next. This was, again, the draft in 2016 that we unveiled. Next. Next. Again, next. I try to wear different universities, especially University of Halabi University, because I was accepted there. So I wore some of the t-shirts and whatnot. Next. This is looking at the statue in the operating room with the window. Next. This was the plaster model that the bronze was based on. Next. We're trying to locate the VAX model on the body. Next. The VAX model was created. Next. There's a lot of work involved with some of these. There are about 20, 30 pieces of sections that come together to give well. Next. This is the face of Cyrus the Great. Next. I don't know if you want to play that video of pouring the head at this point, or you want to leave it for later. All right.
Good.
Well, this has this photo kind of moves you when you're pouring. Basically, you have the wax and you put it through concrete of sort to kind of enlarge the casket. I see the tears coming from the eyes, and it was kind of a tear of joy, I guess. It was a tear of joy after 2,580 years coming back to life. Next, please. These are additional pieces. Next. This is when they're melting the wax. Next, please. You've seen that. And USC. You can see the welding of the different parts coming together here. Next. The face and the hand. And then we're welding and refining. Next. Next. This is Professor Jefferson last time I saw him. Just a reminder, this cylinder is at the UN on the second floor. I'm hoping that we can support this project to get this statue to the United Nations. Next, please. This is a talk that Afshin Zan gave February 27, 2021. He presented our statue and he spoke about the same subject that he's speaking tonight. Next, please. I think that's it. If you're tired, I'll skip it, but if you're not, I can continue with a few things that I wrote.
Get close to the mic.
Okay. Right. The times have changed. The times have changed, and the world is determined to honor and recognize those that rose to the occasion despite all the odds and triumphed over unpleasant historical events and brought peace and understanding to the world. One individual was Zarathustra, or Zatosh. Several thousand years ago, his words and teaching excelled his people to practice good thoughts, good words, and good deeds until today and beyond. The other individual was Kurosh the Great, that by uniting two nations established what we know as the Persian Empire over 580 years ago. However, in the words of Dr. Ali Akbar Jafari, the Persian Empire was not an empire. It was the first United States that the world had ever seen. Cyrus united many nations with diverse cultures together and to bring peace to the world. Dr. Jafari also in his talk added, we follow Achaemenid, we follow Cyrus to bring peace to the world. In view of the fact that in the recent times there has been a drive to gain freedom, equality, and recognize all races and their religions, there is no better time to recognize the King of Kings, Cyrus the Great. He symbolizes the face of freedom, law, equality for all. In recent years, many individuals have made an effort to resurrect Cyrus the Great with all good intentions. They are in love with the concept of Cyrus the just ruler. They see him as the guardian wing that we saw, as us our God. They built replicas and they call it Cyrus. Many see the same guardian figure with an Egyptian crown that you just saw. They remove the three vase type elements and create an imaginary helmet, and they call it Cyrus. All I can say is that we could do better. Create a sculpture to present dignity and grace that Cyrus deserves. All of the above chaos made me more determined to embark on the mission to build Cyrus the Great statue. It has been a long 10-year journey of learning, seeking the unknown. I consulted with experts in the field such as Professor David Strano and others. They gave advice and encouragement during this journey. I hope this sculpture that will be unveiled meets your expectation. After 2,500 years. With unveiling this sculpture, we dedicate ourselves to this cause to honor those who their efforts led to honor truth, human dignity, freedom, peace, and prosperity for humankind. I'd like to thank California's Zoroastrian Center and Dr. Salamati Poor and the 4th Board of Trustees, the 23rd and 24th Board of Directors that worked hard to bring the Zoom unveiling last year and then in-person unveiling today. As a special thank to Mr. Mohandes, Mohammad Taqi Shorakam, Darish Irani, and Sima Shidfar that became the foundation of this project. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge the following individuals that support this project and no longer are with us. And it was a true privilege to know them. Bahram Shasadi, Mehwan Humayi, Fatane Khalid, David Strano, Ali Akbar Jafari, General Khatibi of Iranian Royal Navy, Timsar Khatibi, از کشور شاهنشاهی ایران و هوشنگ سیمون. سپاسگزارم. Thank you.
با درود فراوان خدمت همه باشندگان گرامی، گوش دل فرا می‌دهیم به بندهای از گاتها، سخنان اندیشه برانگیز اشور زرتشت اسمن تمام. به نام اورمزد بخشنده بخشایشگر مهربان، سرو تا گوشایش و هیشتا، ابای نتا سوچامننگ ها، آور ناویچی ثهیا، نرم خوخیایی تنویه، پرامزیاونگ هو، احمای نس رودیایی رودنت پیتی، اچا توی وم خیاما، یویم فرشم کنون اهوم، مزداز چاو اهورا ونگ هو، آمو یسترو برنو اشو چو، کیت هترو منو بود یترو، چیش تیش انکت میتو، اوشتا احمای یحمای، اوشتا کهمای چیت، وسخ شیانس مزداد دایاد اهورو، ادیوی تیت ویشیم کتوی و سمی، اشندرد یاوی تد موی دا آرمید، بوی اشیش ونکوش گیم مننکو، اتوی انکن سوشینتو دخیونام، یویشنوم وهو ننگ ها اچاونته، شو تنایش اشاو توهیو مزدو سنگ هیو، توی زیداتو هموسترو او شمهیو.
Listen with your ears the highest truth. Consider them with illumined minds carefully and decide each man and woman personally between the two paths, good and evil. Before ushering in of the great day or the day of judgment, arise all of you and try to spread Aura's words, Zarathustra's message. May we be sincere servants of there, like those who make the world renewed, O Lord of life and creation. May we enjoy thy help through Asha, righteousness, so that whenever our minds waver in doubt, our hearts and thoughts may turn one-pointed to thee. May the wise ruling at will God grant radiant happiness to any other person at large. I pray for steadfast strength and courage in order to uphold righteousness. Grant me through serenity the blessings of a rich life of the good mind.
هما زور بیم، هما زور هما اشوبیم، هما زور ویش کرفه بیم، هم کرفه کرفه کاران بیم، دورش ونا کاران بیم، هم کرفه بست کشتیان و نیکان و وهان هفت کشور زمین بیم، به سر گذر چینود پل بزرگ سبک و خرم و شاد و آسانمان ودوارنی داداروم است شم و هو و ایشتمستی اوشتا استی اوشتا احمایی یدشایی و هیشتای شم.
May we be joined in strength. May we stand united through righteousness. May we join hands in doing more good deeds. May we unite with good people. May we be far from wrong and wrongdoers. May we be joined hand in hand with all the faithful and all the good people of the world. O Creator God, help us pass over the great bridge of discernment in life, easy, happy, and smooth way. O Creator God, may we reach the best of abode of the righteous, the bright paradise full of comforts. Righteousness is the best good. It is radiant happiness. Radiant happiness comes to the person who is righteous for the sake of righteousness alone.
ایدون باد، ایدون ترج باد.
I think it's time to unveil the statue. The board of directors made considerable effort to bring it toward the beginning of the program. I'm going to ask 6 individuals that have a tremendous amount of respect to go to the statue and start the unveiling. Iranian Jahanian, please go to the statue. Iranian Jahanian, Armin Dr. Rostami. Dr. Zarin-afsar. داریوش ایرانی. مهندس شرکا و پدرم سرونا فرمانسر. Well, the excitement is here now, I guess. I hope we can bring this down correctly.
I'm David Stronach, and I worked in Iran for nearly 20 years, and I had the honor of conducting excavations in Pasargad from 1961 to 1963. And now I'm an old retired professor. I taught at Berkeley for the last 20 years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. I understand that the Kourosh statue will be unveiled soon. And I have been asked to say a few words about it. First, I must congratulate Mr. Zarin-afsar for his wonderful creation. Mr. Zarin-afsar embarked on a very difficult task, since we have absolutely no real image of Kourosh. In fact, we don't have any real image of any ancient Near Eastern monarchs, and all the available images are simply conventional and are not in any way representational. Therefore, regardless of its conventional rendering, this statue is symbolic of a great monarch and must be appreciated as such. Nevertheless, what is striking in this work and makes it different from all other ancient representation is in the facial expression that Mr. Zarin-afsar has created. The face and the gaze of the statue show a determined and at the same time kind and considerate, and by extension a just ruler, which is what Kourosh has been known in the history. So I congratulate the artists and the community who put efforts together to create something wonderful for the Iranian community in Los Angeles. Thank you.
A first for the 21st century AD, a statue of Cyrus the Great. As many of you who are here today will be well aware, Mr. Bahram Zarin-afsar, a gifted sculptor and painter who is an architect by profession, has devoted a substantial part of the past few years to the completion of an unusual and compelling work of art. Indeed, he has spent much of this time selflessly researching and tirelessly working on the completion of the imposing statue of Cyrus the Great that now stands before you. Cyrus, one of the most memorable rulers in the long history of Iran, ruled a little over 2,500 years ago, from 559 to 530 BC. Again, as most of you already know, Cyrus founded the Achaemenid Persian Empire, a huge empire that stretched by the time of his death from the steppes of Central Asia to the borders of Egypt, and from the northeast corner of the Mediterranean to the borders of India. This vast area constituted the territory of the greatest empire that the world had yet seen. In visual terms, however, Cyrus himself remains an elusive figure. For all his achievements and for all the praises that have been heaped upon him for his humane and tolerant treatment of those who came to be included among his subjects, we do not have a single representation of this extraordinary individual that dates from his own lifetime. Even at his elegant upland capital, Pasargadae or Pasargad, located in a mountain-ringed plain in southwestern Iran, where he defeated Astyages, the last king of Media, in 550 BC, this singular monarch did not leave any image of himself that is still in existence. Although some scholars have suggested that the famous carved relief of a four-winged figure that stands in the main gateway at Pasargadae could be a representation of Cyrus, this seems in the end to be very unlikely. A winged image of this mythical nature has to be a depiction of a supernatural guardian, as opposed to a portrait of a Persian king. Accordingly, Mr. Zarin-afsar took part of his inspiration for his portrait of Cyrus from two particularly important representations of Darius the Great, who reigned from 522 to 486 BC. The first of these dates from about 520 BC and comes to Darius's celebrated victory relief at Bisitun, located on a high cliff above the age-old highway between Hamadan and Kermanshah. The second vital portrait of Darius was discovered in situ at the gate of Darius at Susa, a little less than 50 years ago. From various clues, it is clear that this more than life-size statue was carved in Egypt, and one of its several hieroglyphic inscriptions even affirms that the statue was made to show that the Persian man held Egypt. Such was the quality of this beautifully carved stone statue that Xerxes, Darius' son and heir, apparently gave orders that it should be transported all the way from Egypt to Susa, although whether this happened by land or sea is not known. With insights provided by these and other choice objects of Achaemenid date, with the advice of various specialists in Achaemenid art and archaeology, and especially with his own well-honed artistic instincts, Bahram Zarin-afsar has given us what I consider to be a most acceptable and agreeable representation of Cyrus the Great. It is also matter for great gratification that this striking statue of one of history's most unusual and attractive figures is now ready to be shown in various carefully selected venues before finding a permanent home in some suitably distinguished setting. David Stronach, Professor Emeritus of Near Eastern Studies, University of California, Berkeley.
The آرزو در دل منی در دلم کنم جستجوی تو در دلم کنم جستجوی تو جان 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 از همه جهان میکشد دلم به سوی تو
She's going to share a few words with us. The title of her talk is Mayoral Iran, or The Love of Iran.
دیدی چه به پا کردم مشتی عرب بربر، خونریز تر از چنگیز، وحشی تر از اسکندر. آن روز چنان آباد، امروز چنین ویران. تن زیر پی تازی، دل در گروه دهقان. به روان پاک کوروش بزرگ این شاه شاهان و بزرگ مرد خردمند تاریخ و فرهنگ بنیادی جهان درود باد. خردمندی که پیش از 2500 سال پیش با پیروی از پیام زرتشت چنان فرمان روایی کرد که مایه شادی و آسایش مردمان 7 کشور زمین بود. اکنون در این سرای سرود در مسیر تاریخ سفری کنیم تا به یاد آوریم که در گذشته چه بودیم و اکنون چه هستیم. تو ای خاک ایران میمون سرشت، تو ای مجمر آتش زردهشت، تو ای خانه مهر دیرین ما، بود بر تو چشم جهانبین ما. تو ای مرز شاهان کشورستان، تو ای میهن رستم داستان، تو ای زادگاه سرای دلی چو کوروش، چو گیو و چو گودرز پیل. تو ای بوسگاه کهان و نهان، تو ای نور و چشم و چراغ جهان. کجا رفت آن روزگار مهی؟ کجا رفت آن فرد شاهنشهی؟ کجایند مردان شیرافکند که بودند پیوسته پیرامند؟ که ما را چرا این بد آمد به سر؟ چرا گشته ویران این بوم و بر؟ چه کردیم که این خونه گشتیم خار؟ خرد را فکندیم انسان ز کار. نبود این چنین کشور و دین ما، کجا رفت آیین دیرین ما؟ به یزدان که این کشور آباد بود، همه جای مردان آزاد بود. بزرگی به مردی و فرهنگ بود، گدایی در این بوم و بر ننگ بود. همه دادگستر، همه دادیار، خرد کرده بر جان و دل شهریار. پدر بر پدر آریایی نژاد، ز پشت فریدون نیکو نهاد. بهشتی بود ایران آن روزگار، به زیبایی و رنگ و بوی و نگار. چرا که به گفته کوروش بزرگ آن شاه شاهان، ما زندگی را ستایش خواهیم کرد. ما آزادی و عدالت را ستایش خواهیم کرد. ما ظالمان زمین را در هم خواهیم شکست و تا بود نیز چنان کرد. پس کجا رفت آن دانش و هوش ما که شد مهر ایران فراموش ما؟ که چشم جهان بین ما کور کرد؟ که ما را ز راه خرد دور کرد؟ که نامردمی را به ما یاد داد؟ بر و بوم ما را که برباد داد؟ و پس از گذشت هزاران سال بدانیم و آگاه باشیم که از آن روز دشمن به ما چیره گشت، که ما را روان و خرد تیره گشت. از آن روز این خانه ویرانه شد، که نان آورش مرد بیگانه شد. به یزدان که ما گر خرد داشتیم، کجا این سرانجام بد داشتیم؟ همه رنج و نفرین و درد و بلاست، سرانجام برگشتن از راه راست. بیا تا بکوشیم و جنگ آوریم، برون سر از این بار ننگ آوریم. به دامان زیبای این بوم و بر، سزد که از دل و جان گذاریم سر. رهانیم از چنگ اهریمنش، چو پروانه گردیم پیرامنش. بگیریم دست کشاورز را، ببندیم بر دشمنان مرز را. بیاریم آن آب رفته به جوی، مگر باز یابیم از آن آب روی. شود مردمی کیش و آیین ما، نگیرد خرد خورده بر دین ما. ایدون باد، ایدون ترک.
Rarely have I met a more articulate woman. Thank you, Mitra John. You're a blessing. Just a reminder, there will be some hors d'oeuvres and beverages served after the event, so please stay with us. At this time, we have a video presentation by Professor Afshin Zand. He grew up in Iran until the age of 15 on the compounds of the Khuzestan Water and Power Authority. At 15, he went to live with his uncle in England to complete his high school. And after high school, he joined his family during his father's sabbatical at Harvard Business School. Afshin studied at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he earned his bachelor's degree. After a few years of studying Persian history and literature, Afshin met Professor Richard Fry of Harvard University, known as Dean of the World's Iranologists, who invited him to carry out studies in cultural history. Afshin undertook interdisciplinary studies as a student of Professor Fry from 1985 to 1993, fulfilling the requirements for his PhD. These studies included pre-Islamic history, Persian literature, Zoroastrianism, Judeo-Christianity, biblical history, comparative religion, linguistics, and Indo-European studies, and Islamic and contemporary history. Please turn your attention to a video presentation by Professor Afshin Azan.
At this time of year, around November 1st, those who know how America's founding fathers were fond of Cyrus the Great try to honor Cyrus in some way, such as the wonderful sculpture that's been unveiled today near Los Angeles. Many people want to know how the founding fathers came to know Cyrus, about that connection. And for example, when the US Secretary of State writes that Cyrus's respect for human rights and religious freedom inspired the founding fathers, how did that happen? Well, I am a scholar of cultural history, and I'm here to walk you through that. The evidence that directly links Cyrus to the founding fathers. My name is Afshin Zand, and with my old professor Richard Fry of Harvard University, we researched that subject. Other scholars have also researched it, and I will be paying tribute to them as well. They include Neil McGregor, director of the British Museum, Julian Raby, director of the Freer and Sackler Galleries at the Smithsonian, meaning the ancient history part of the Smithsonian, Scott Harrop of Monticello and previously of UVA, Caroline Winterer of Stanford University. And what you see here is Thomas Jefferson's Monticello that he architected and designed himself. And on the right you see the mausoleum of Cyrus the Great from about 530 BC. As mentioned with Professor Richard Fry, the late Richard Fry, my old professor, I researched this topic, and now I'm going to walk you through it slide by slide. Cyrus himself was the founder of the Iranian state around 550 BC, and almost concurrently Messiah to the Jews. For the founding fathers, his importance lies in the fact that he was the founder and leader of the world's first and largest multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious unity of states, much like the United States has become today. The Persians are the main people with historicity in the Bible, meaning attested outside the Bible as well. And they are the only people who are praised in the Bible. Next, Thomas Jefferson was an avid reader of the classics, and in particular Xenophon. And he took a keen interest in ancient history. As you see, he says, I feel a much greater interest in knowing what passed 2,000 or 3,000 years ago than what is now passing. And of the various pieces of evidence that link the founding fathers, the one that's really sweet and everyone can relate to is this letter from Thomas Jefferson's granddaughter, Anne Carey Randolph, writing to dear grandpapa reporting that her brother Jefferson Randolph is now translating the history of Cyrus by Xenophon, which is what Thomas Jefferson had told his grandkids to study. And we know that because in another letter he says that to another grandchild. And we know it also because James Madison reports to Thomas Jefferson of who has advanced in studying Xenophon. Here, Thomas Jefferson says to his grandson, Francis Epps, that in Greek, go first through the Cyropedia. Cyropedia being the anglicized pronunciation, and then read Herodotus and the others. And by the way, we ought to mention that those others, Herodotus mostly deals with Iran, and Anabasis mostly deals with Iran, as does Arrian's Alexander. But nonetheless, Jefferson prioritized the Cyropedia, and what you see absent here is Plato. And Jefferson and Adams and the other founding fathers, they held Xenophon in far, far, far greater esteem than Plato. In one of my trips to Monticello and working with the helpful curators there, one of the curators, Miss Andrina Tay, came up with the fuller list of Thomas Jefferson's editions of the Cyropedia. And there may have been more than this, these four, because some of his books had been lost in fires. And in addition to these four, as Caroline Winter of Stanford University has noted, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to his friend Philip Mazzei in Italy, asking him for an Italian translation of the Cyropedia to see what insights other people may have had while translating the Cyropedia. Now bear in mind that at least one of these four editions has the Latin translation on the right-hand side and the Greek original on the left. And Jefferson could read all those languages. Here we see a reason for Jefferson's keen interest in Cyrus, because Xenophon, who of course was Greek, and the Greeks were at war with Iran and they had no reason to be praiseful of Iran, writes of Cyrus that towards him the disposition of all men was such that every nation felt that they had failed unless they could send Cyrus the treasures of their land. And all they asked was to be guided by his judgment and his alone. In going through the Cyropedia and in reading Thomas Jefferson's letters, I found that there were passages that bore a striking resemblance to each other. In this particular one, in the Cyropedia, Xenophon says how Cyrus, being the head of the empire, had the prerogative to be insolent if he wanted to, but he always kept that under control through right-mindedness and exercising self-control. And Jefferson is teaching those moral precepts of Cyrus to his grandson Francis Epps, asking him to exercise self-control and a check upon himself when nobody else might be around. And also Xenophon says how Cyrus set an example, a model for all those below him, so that they too would exercise that self-control. And that is how that vast empire brought justice to its inhabitants. It established a system of just governors and overseers and administrators. This is a statue of Xenophon, the elder classmate of Plato, both of them students of Socrates. That's the list of all the good scholars and curators and librarians who have either worked on this on their own or helped me in my work on it over the past 12 years. And next, I will play a clip from two of those great scholars. Julian Raby, whom, as I mentioned, made that brilliant discovery of Thomas Jefferson collating two of his editions, page by page and line by line. And Neil MacGregor, director of the British Museum, who's done more than anyone else in the world to bring the message of Cyrus the Great and Thomas Jefferson, and in general the founding fathers, to the world, and their connection known. And at the end there's links for further information. So happy Cyrus the Great Day, and now we will play about 5 minutes worth of the speech of Julian Raby and Neil MacGregor.
So in the second room, you will see a copy of Jefferson's Cyropedia. He actually had two editions, one from, I can't remember whether it was 1727 or 1737, and the one that you'll see in the exhibition is one from 1767. Now what's extraordinary is it's open to an opening in which he has scratched out one line. He's marked through that line in ink. Now that particular passage that he has crossed out is a problematic passage in the manuscript tradition and does not appear in, for example, the late 19th century Oxford edition of the Cyropedia. But it's quite clear that Jefferson himself must have been collating line by line between his earlier edition and the later edition. And his earlier edition did not have that particular line. I think that it sounds minimal, but it illustrates the degree of attention that Jefferson himself is paying to the Greek text. And above that copy of the Cyropedia, you will see a quote from a letter that Jefferson wrote to his grandson in 1820, in which he talks about the importance of learning Greek, and he urges him to first read Xenophon's Cyropedia. Now, my recollection of learning Greek was not that this was the ultimate text from a linguistic point of view. So in other words, he's urging him to learn Greek through a book that's a fairly good read, but essentially it's one that has this moral example. Now, I'm sure there are others who would know much more about the broader impact of the image of Cyrus on Jefferson and the other founding fathers. We're looking at a very particular, and I hope telling, little example of the degree of attention that he paid to this particular text.
This is probably the first moment in history that we know of a ruler thinking about how he's going to manage a multicultural state. The object behind me is known as the Cyrus cylinder, and it's made of baked clay, and it was buried at the foundation of a building in Babylon about 2,600 years ago, in fact in 539 BC. And what it is a declaration by the king of Persia, Cyrus, who has just conquered Babylon. and he's telling us what he's going to do. Babylon in 539 is ruled by Belshazzar, and Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar, the kings of Babylon, are the kings who had sacked Jerusalem, brought the Jews to Babylon, imprisoned them, brought all kinds of other people to Babylon and imprisoned them. And Cyrus, the king of Persia, is going to set the people free. What he's going to do is allow people to go home and resume their religious life. Different religions, different people in different places. The Persian Empire is the first empire to have to run in different languages and to accommodate different faiths. So it's always been a point of reference. Cyrus has always been a point of reference to people wondering how you rule a society with different religions, different traditions, without people fighting. So it's very important to us today because all our big cities have people of different religions, different languages. But he's particularly important to the United States because in the 18th century, when the founding fathers are thinking, how will we make a country where different faiths are all respected, but there's no state religion, they looked to Cyrus. And Thomas Jefferson studies Cyrus. He tells his grandson to study Cyrus. And the US Constitution is in some ways the direct descendant of this cylinder. I hope that the visitor looking at this object, will understand that for any Iranian, this is part of their great history. Just as any Italian knows he's the heir of the Roman Empire, every Iranian knows they are the heir of Cyrus and that great tolerant empire that shaped the Middle East 2,500 years ago, and that the ideas and the ideals of the Persian Empire are very close to the ideals and ideas of the modern United States.
Okay, we're almost at the end of our program, but we have one more very special program in mind for you. But before we get there, I would like to read a very short but very important letter from CyrusSociety.org. And they send us this letter saying, "Dear all, Cyrus the Great was an Iranian Zoroastrian who was born as a Zoroastrian, lived as a Zoroastrian, and passed away as a Zoroastrian. His good thoughts, good words, and good deeds resonate more and more in the 21st century. As you may know, since 2011, October 29th has semi-officially been celebrated as Cyrus the Great Day. About a year ago, we started to publish an online petition at CyrusSociety.org to collect support around the world to officially establish this day by the General Assembly of the United Nations, and through submission by the leaders of a few countries, we have been able to touch with through the ambassadors and generals consulate. Fortunately, in a span of a year that we have started this initiative, more than 11 million supporters from 257 cities in 63 countries and 6 continents have been collected. You can see the petition at CyrusSociety.org. It's also available, you can get to it from the website of the California Zoroastrian Center. In addition, 23 media and cultural organizations have joined this global effort. This is an all-inclusive global initiative, and your support is also welcomed and well appreciated. So please, we encourage you to visit CyrusSociety.org and add your name to the petition so that the United Nations can officially recognize October 29th as Cyrus the Great Day. That would be a big accomplishment for our community. So, on to the last program for the evening. It's going to be a play titled The Royal Court, depicting Cyrus's mother, Mandana, and Cyrus's daughter, Atusa. And this is the description. Mandana was the daughter of, I better get this name right, Asiagaz. Asiagaz. That's how they pronounce it. That's what it's written in English. I don't know. I'm sure in Farsi we say it very differently. King of the Medes and wife of the Persian nobleman Cambyses I. She was also the daughter of Cyrus the Great and sister of Cambyses. Atusa was the daughter of Cyrus the Great. No, I'm so sorry. She was also the mother of the everlasting hero of Iran and the world, Cyrus the Great. So that's Mandana. Atusa was the daughter of Cyrus the Great, sister of Cambyses, and she was the wife of Darius the Great and the mother of Xerxes. So this play features performances by Soina Salamati and Mahnaz Dinyari. Costume designer for the play is Adele Alba, and the play has been written and directed by Mitra Dinyari. So please give your attention to the play The Royal Court.
بگذارید هر کسی به آیین خویش باشد. زنان را گرامی بدارید، فرودستان را دریابید و هر کسی به تکلم قبیله خود سخن بگوید. آدمی پدگان و عزت بزرگان آرزوی من است. شکوه شب و حرمت خورشید را گرامی می‌دارم. پس تا هست شب‌هایتان به شادی و روزهایتان رازدار بها. این فرمان من است، این واژه، این وصیت من است. او که آدمی را از مأوای خویش براند، خود نیز از خواب خوش رانده خواهد شد. تا هست هوادار دانایی و تندرستی باشد. من چنین پنداشته، چنین گفته و چنین خواستم. فرمانروایی که همدل مردمان خویش نباشد، سیه روزتر از همیشه سرنگون خواهد شد. پس از قول من بگویید و جباران این جهان بگویید که از ظلمت خویش حتی پلاس پاره‌ای به گور نخواهد. هشدارتان می‌دهم، او که به کشتن آزادی بیاید، هرگز از هوای اهورا خوشبو نخواهد شد، بخشوده نخواهد شد، بزرگ نخواهد شد. بی عاقبت او که بر پریشانی مردمان حکومت کند، بی فردا او که بر درماندگان حکومت کند. شهریاری که نداند شب مردمانش چگونه به صبح میرسد، گورکن گمنامی است که دل به دفن دان بسته است. ما از کمینگاه اهریمنان خواهیم گذشت. ما ظالمان زمین را در هم خواهیم شکست. ما زندگی را ستایش خواهیم کرد، آزادی را و عدالت را ستایش خواهیم کرد. ما ظالمان زمین ها در هم خواهیم.
مشته از بزرگان دربار شنیدم که همه مردم مابل، تمامی سرزمین سومر و اکد، بزرگان و فرمانبرداران در برابر پدرم کوروش کرنش کردند و بر پاهایش بوسه زدند. آنان از پادشاهی او شادمان شدند و دلهایشان درخشان گشته.
پس چنین است فرزندم کوروش، شاه جهان، شاه بزرگ، شاه نیرومند، شاه شهر بابل و سومر و اکد، شاه چهار گوشه جهان، اوست پسر کمبوجیه، شاه شهر انشان، نوه کوروش، نواده چشمش.
گویند که کوروش با قلب گشاده و سپاهیان خود با آرامش در بابل بر تخت شاهی جایگاه سروری برپا کرده. او با قلبی گشاده مردمان بابل را از بند رها کرده و موجب خشنودی مردوک گشته.
سپاس اومز که فرزندم به باورهای دین مزدیسنی رفتار کرده و با آشتی، دوستی و ارج به خواست مردمان آن سرزمین موجب شادمانی آنان گشته.
شنیده ایم که کوروش مردمان آن سرزمین ها خدایانی که آنها بر آن باور داشتند را به جایگاهشان بازگردانیده تا آن مردمان در پرستش کردن خدای خود آزاد باشند و مایه دلشادی همگان شده.
خوشنودم که فرزندم شاهی دادگر، شاهی مهربان و شاهی بخشنده است. ای کاش تا همگان این سخن پدرت را به یاد داشته باشند که دلرو بودن و دلبسته کردن مردمان نه با تندخویی است، بلکه با کردارهای مهرورزانه است. مهر بورزید به مردمان که این مهرورزی به شما نیرویی خواهد داد که دشمنان را از پا درآورید.
ایدون باد،
ایدون ترج باد.
Two names correctly. I seem to always get the vowels wrong. Astyages and Zarin-afsar. So that's my homework for tonight. So listen, we hope that you have been inspired by tonight's event. We hope that you have learned something new, and we hope that you take forward the values of Cyrus the Great in your life. It's one thing to celebrate him as an ancestor, as a hero, and as a historical figure, and be proud to have roots in him and everyone who came after him that set our lives into motion. But the best way to honor him and other leaders is by living by the values that they set forth, which are justice, equality, freedom, kindness, and acceptance of others. So, without further ado, I bid you good night, and I hope you enjoy the hors d'oeuvres, and have a great evening. Shabbat Shalom. And also, the hors d'oeuvres have been provided by Mr. Zarin-afsar. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you.